Okay, and so now what's left to do here is to get my rims cleaned up, the mouths of my jars cleaned up. And I do that by using a clean paper towel and some white vinegar. Okay, you could use just hot water and a clean cloth, but I like using the vinegar because it really helps remove any residue that could be left on the mouths of the jar. And that is a big deal. This is a big step that sometimes people forget to do or they think it's not a big deal, but it really is a big deal. It could be something as small as a little piece of pepper that we can't see by the naked eye that's going to or could cause your jars not to seal. And we don't want that. All this work that we did, and just because we forgot to wipe our rims off, it didn't seal. So we don't want that. So let's just go ahead and follow all of the steps. This is literally a step in canning. And I definitely advise you use the vinegar, but but water does work. I have used water. All right, perfect. It is now time to start getting the lids and bands on. And I have dropped my lids and bands into my pressure canner. They've only been in here for a couple minutes. I'm not boiling them or anything. They're just in here in the hot water, and it helps to add a little bit more sanitation. It also helps to loosen up the silicone around the bands, not the bands, excuse me, the lids, the little orange silicone around there. It kind of helps loosen that up a little bit, which does help create your seal on your jars. All right, so they've only been in here for a couple minutes. You don't have to do it this way. You can have them sitting in a bowl in some warm or hot water. You can do it that way as well. But I just said, hey, why not? The water's sitting here now, so I'll just pop them in here. Okay, so I'm going to now start removing my lids. All right, and so I'm actually going to just go ahead and remove them first before I place them on the jars. I just want to kind of show you this device. This is the magnetic lid lifter, and this is a great tool so that you don't have to worry about, burning yourself or getting yourself, touching on the lids or the bands. All right, so I'm going to take these all out first, and then I'll bring you over so that you can see how I place them on to the jars. I think that's all of them. Great. All right, and so we are ready to go. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I pray with me, you all, that this camera holds up on this tripod because it's like on one leg. Oh gosh, here we go. All right, so I'm going to just start grabbing one lid at a time, and I'm going to just placing it on, just as so. I'll grab a band, and I'll place a band on, and it's just going to go on just enough to get it on there. It's what's known as fingertip tight. So we're not going to, put too much pressure on it when we're putting the band on. We're just going to get it on there just enough to secure the lid. Air still has to get out of there. So we don't want it on so tight that air can't escape. We don't want it too loose that it falls off, but it doesn't take a lot. So it's referred to as fingertip tight if you ever hear that terminology. Just enough to get it on there. Okay. And I like this device because it kind of helps you from having to put your hands too much on the lid. Okay. Oh gosh, gotta get myself a new tripod, Lord. Anybody want to donate a tripod to a sister? Because good girl is struggling out here. Okay, so there we go. Now it is time to start loading up these jars into the canner. Okay, so the time is now to load the jars into the canner. All right, and so I've got my handy jar lifter. Okay, the mighty jar lifter, I like to call it. And so sometimes people get a little confused on how they're supposed to maneuver this. The roly part is the part that goes on your hand. So roly roly on your hand, all right? Okay, so we're gonna take these jars and start loading them into the canner. Okay, now the quart size jars, they can be pretty heavy. So sometimes, you know, I'll just kind of put my hand under it a little bit just to give it a little support. These aren't super hot right now, so it's okay for me to touch it. All right, ooh, look at that. So we've got 6 quart-sized jars in here. Boom. All right. So let me bring you in and see if you can get a look at that. And so here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 quart-sized jars inside the pressure canner. All right, so we are now going to be placing the lid onto the pressure canner. And so I remember having a lot of difficulty putting these on, and some people do struggle, but it's really simple. So on your top, well, before we do that, we're going to make sure that we wash this. We're going to make sure that our vent lock is able to move up and down. And we're especially going to make sure that there's nothing clogging up the vent pipe. All right, so you can do that a couple ways. Hold it up to a light. Make sure that you can see all the way through it. If something happens to be clogging it, you can take like a toothpick or a pipe cleaner and stick through there and remove any debris that may be in there. It could have got left in there from the last project you did and it just didn't get cleaned out. So do that first. That is so important, okay? And so make sure that your little rubber rim deal is in there securely, okay? All looks good. So now we're going to look on top of the lid, and it has like a little V. I'm not sure how well you can see that, but there's like a little, I guess you can call it a little notch or a little V shape, all right? And you're going to line that up with the little V on this handle over here, all right? So just line them up. So I'm going to line them up, all right? And once they're lined up, I'll just twist it closed. Booyah! Okay, wasn't that easy? I used to struggle so much. This used to be me. This was me. I mean, I was 20 minutes trying to get this thing on. And all you have to do is just line it up. Boom. Okay. All right, so here we go. I'm going to crank the heat up to high. All right. And I'm going to be just cleaning up my kitchen now and waiting for steam to start building up and coming out of this vent pipe over here. Let me see if I can bring you in so you can see better. So over here, this is what I'm referring to when I'm talking about the vent pipe. Okay, so momentarily we're going to start to see some steam start to come up out of this vent pipe. It's going to start off a little slow. It may sputter a bit, and then it will get a nice strong steam. And when that happens, I'm going to set my timer for 10 minutes because this needs to vent for 10 minutes, okay? We're going to exhaust, for 10 minutes. And so then after that, that's when I'm going to put my regulator on top of there. I'm going to place my regulator on there after my 10 minutes are up. But do not put this on before. It has to vent. It must vent. So now we're starting to get a little bit of steam coming up out of here. We're almost where we want to be, but not quite yet. Another thing we're going to be looking out for, this piece back here is the vent lock, okay? That vent lock is going to pop up shortly as the pressure starts to build up, okay? And so once that pops up, we're going to be almost where we want to be. All right. Looks like we might be there pretty soon. Still nothing yet, but I do see that the steam is getting much stronger coming up out of this vent pipe. It's getting much stronger. So the only thing we're waiting on is for this to pop up. And yep, you're going to see some water starting to push up out of there. That's normal. See a lot of water coming up out of there and steam. kind of sputtering back there. A lot of times people get nervous. I'll get phone calls like, oh my God, water is coming out. Is that normal? Yes, this is normal. And you can hear inside that, you know, it's definitely bubbling inside. Almost there. La la. Okay, so the vent lock has come up. And so this venting is going to get stronger. Okay. Now, although there is pressure starting to build up inside, it's not the kind of pressure that's going to allow our, you know, our dial gauge to start to move here. So there's not any pressure like that. There's, you know, maybe a little bit, but not a lot because it's venting, right? So that's really what's going on here. We're venting. So it's getting really strong. That's what we want. So now I'm going to set my timer for 10 minutes. And after the 10 minutes are up, that's when I'll place my regulator on the vent pipe like we talked about earlier. And then that's when the actual pressure will really start to build up inside the pressure canner. All right, so we're in the countdown now. It's been close to 10 minutes. We're at the countdown. And so once this timer goes off, I'm going to be placing my regulator onto the vent pipe. Okay, so here we go at the countdown. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, here we go. So for this recipe, I just have one weight on. So it's a 10 psi. I'm going to go ahead and place that on. All right, boom. Don't let that intimidate you. If it makes you nervous, you can put a pot holder on. That's what I used to do. That used to make me, let me turn this off. It used to make me really nervous. So I used to put a pot holder on. I would stand as far back away as I could. But now it's just so easy for me to do now. But I understand if that makes you nervous, just do it that way. So as you can see now, this gauge dial is starting to move up now. Now remember, it was at 0 that whole time. It was not building pressure, but it is starting to build pressure now. Okay. And so this is an indicator to let us know when I get close to the 10 psi. But I'm not going to rely solely on this dial gauge. I'm really going to be relying on my regulator. So once it starts to rock, that's when I'm going to know that pressure has adequately built up inside the pressure canner. If you look at the gauge, you can see it's close to the number 10. Now the regulator isn't quite moving yet, but we're going to be close. And once it will probably start moving as soon as this gets past the 10. And that's where we're going to see movement. We'll probably see much more movement once it gets to 11. Yep, there we go. So see that? It's starting to move now. So the pressure has built up inside the pressure canner. All right. That's what we want. Okay, now see this? It's got a nice steady rock, but I'm concerned because it's really slowing down. See that? Look how fast that stopped. That's not good. And so now I've got to bring the heat back up a little bit. And so this is normal. You have to kind of play with it a little bit. You got to get to know your stove. You got to get to know your burners to determine exactly where it needs to be. So in this case, I brought the heat down too low and it stopped altogether. So I cannot start my processing time until I get a nice, steady, consistent rock. Okay, so I'm going to bring it up some. And so I'm not paying attention to the gauge. Okay, I'm paying attention to this regulator. All right, so I'm at a nice steady pace that I like. And so I'm going to go ahead and now start my timer for 25 minutes. This recipe for quart-sized jars calls for a processing time of 25 minutes. Okay, now if I had used pint-sized jars, I would be processing them for 20 minutes. But for the quart size, we have to bump it up a little bit and it's going to be 25 minutes processing time. I'm still going to keep an eye on this regulator every now and then and make sure it doesn't stop rocking. If for some reason it were to stop rocking, I'd have to get it moving again, bring the heat up to get it moving, and then I would have to actually start my processing time all over again. So if, for example, it's been 10 minutes and then all of a sudden I notice my regulator's not moving, I'd have to get it moving again, bring up the heat, and then I'd have to start the clock again at 25 minutes. That's just how it works with pressure canning. Okay, we have to be safe than sorry. All right? All right, and so the 25 minutes are up. I have turned off the heat. And so I'm going to now be allowing this canner to, cool down and for the pressure to now start to come down. And so if you look at the gauge, you can see that it's starting to come down, right? And the regulator is no longer moving. I've turned off the heat. And so that's what's going to happen now. The pressure is going to start to come down, all right? And back here, that vent lock is going to eventually pop back down. So we're waiting now for that to happen, okay? When that pops down, that's when it's going to be safe for me to remove the regulator, okay? All right, so usually what will happen is when that pops down, I usually give it another 5 minutes and then I'll remove the regulator, okay? And then I'll give it another 5 minutes before I actually remove the lid, okay? So that's what we're doing now. We're waiting for the vent lock to go down. When that happens, I'll wait 5 minutes. I'll remove my regulator. I'll wait another 5 minutes, and then I'll take off the actual canner lid. All right, and I'll be careful when I do that because there's still going to be a lot of steam in there. It's still going to be very hot inside, but it will be safe for me to remove the lid. All right, and so as you can see, the vent lock has fallen down. All right, and so I'm going to let a few more minutes pass before I actually remove the regulator. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and remove the regulator, and I'm going to give it another maybe just about 5 minutes more before I actually remove the actual lid from the pressure canner. All right, and so here we go. I'm about to go ahead and remove the lid from my pressure canner. All right, so I'm going to be careful twisting it counterclockwise, I believe it's called, and I'm going to lift the lid back away from me. And you can probably already see that there's steam coming out of there, a lot of steam coming out, okay? And so I'm gonna go ahead and grab my jar lifter, remember the rolly part on your hand, and I'm gonna start removing them one by one and placing them on a countertop with this cloth here. Always have some type of cloth that you can place your jars onto. You don't want to ever just put them straight onto the counter because there could be a shock in temperature. So here we go. All right. Wow. Those green beans look like they're going to taste so amazing because of all those flavors that are in there with that broth and that garlic and that lemon zest. Oh my gosh. All right. I'm not sure how well. Oops, almost lost it. How well the lighting is that you can see what's going on in here. But they're still boiling inside, actually. Okay. And so what's going to be happening, I'm going to place all my jars on my counter, and they're going to stay there undisturbed for the next 18 to 24 hours, right? And so, because they're actually going to be still processing. And so we don't want to touch them or move them around or anything. We want to give them time to settle and give the jars, we want a good seal on them. And then when that 24 hours is up, then I'm going to test each jar to make sure that the lids have sealed properly. I'm going to test the lids. I'm going to remove the bands first, then I'll test the lids. Okay? And just bring you in a little bit closer here so that you can just see the yummy goodness that's going on inside here. All right, and you can tell that this is the one that was made with just the water. You know, it's clear, whereas this one you can kind of see, you know, the pepper and some garlic and stuff going on here, the broth, you know. So yeah, and I don't hear any pinging. Usually, you know, sometimes you'll hear the popping ping sound. This one might ping because I do see that there's still like a little lift there. Could try to give it a moment so that you guys can hear what that sound is like. But it could have happened already inside of the canner because I took a moment before I actually took them out. So sometimes we miss the pinging sound because it happens inside the canner. But I don't want to actually touch it, but you can kind of see that little dimple there. So if I wait a moment, we'll probably hear a pinging sound. And then what will happen is we won't see that little raised dimple there. And we'll know that the sealing process has begun. And there it goes. That was one of the pings. And so if you look now, it's no longer raised, right? That dimple has gone down. And so that's going to happen to all of the jars. This one is still raised, so you're going to get a ping out of this one. Let's see. I heard one ping earlier. Looks like this one is still raised, so that's going to ping soon. I think that one already went down. Yeah, that one went down already. I heard that one go off. So we've got a couple more that still are going to pop. There it is. Just wanted to give you guys an example of what that sound is. And so that some people get a little nervous if they're not knowing that it's supposed to happen. And then some people get nervous when they don't hear it because sometimes it takes a little bit longer for it to happen. Oh, there we go. That was 3. Actually 4. It was 4 because I heard 1, 2, 3, 4. There's like 2 more to go. This one is still raised, I can see. I think this one back here still has to pop. All right. That's a good indication. It's a very good indication that our jars are going to seal. Ooh, yes, I love that. All right, perfect. There's 1 more to go. Let's see if I can get that one in on here for you guys. I can definitely see that that's still raised. But you get the gist of it. But thank you for joining me in this YouTube video. I hope that you got something out of it. I know I had some difficulties with my tripod, so I hope you were able to get a good visual on what was going on in the process. So I'll try to do better next time. If you have any questions about anything that I may not have covered, or just some questions in general regarding this recipe, or how I went about the process, or canning in general, go ahead and put that in the comments. And if you got anything out of this, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. And then make sure that you have subscribed and turn your notifications on. And I'll see you in the next episode. Peace, y'all.